Well, I just saw before coming on here that Donald Trump has agreed not to host any more outdoor rallies. And God bless him. I can't sit here and blame him or fault him, especially given what happened at his last outdoor rally, right? I mean, we're lucky to have him. Why risk it? But what a sad state of affairs in America when the Republican presidential candidate cannot give his outdoor rallies, which, by the way, are unique to him. Nobody does those rallies like Donald Trump. And that is a travesty that we won't have those now. And during an election year. And the reason he's doing this, of course, is what happened on July 13th with the assassination attempt, but also because the Secret Service just came out and said recently that, hey, Mr. Former President, Mr. President, we can't protect you. What country do we live in? The Secret Service cannot do its job. Well, we can give unlimited billions of dollars to Ukraine, to anyone else. We can give billions to Iran to help them build a nuclear missile to destroy Israel and America and whatever. But we can't even provide Secret Service. Well, we can't afford it. We can't train. I mean, what's the deal here? This is nonsense. And I want to get more into this because this is election interference, and it's going to explain, why we have Kamala Harris. I want to get into that too. I just got to do one thing here. I'm not sure. I didn't hit a timer or something else. Hold on. All right. Anyway, technical issue resolved. Never forget. I didn't tell you on this show, perhaps, but a couple weeks ago, because I'm new to using StreamYard, which is what we use here, which is great. I love it. It's fantastic. But I wasn't familiar, and so I did an entire show, 60 minutes. And let me tell you, if you are not a host of a show or a podcaster, 60 minutes is a lot of content. A lot of content. That's a long time to be talking, and I don't take breaks. I just do the show. I like it that way, the energy, etc. And so anyway, I went 60 minutes, gave it everything I had, and I didn't hit record. So that's what happened there. I just had to make sure I timed the show, and there's things going on here. It's not just easy. I know I make it look easy, but it's not so easy. There's a lot involved here. But anyway, I want to go into the timeline first, I think, because we have experienced a shockingly tumultuous series of events over the past month. It started, in my mind, with the June 27th debate. That was the calamitous debate between Donald Trump and Joe Biden. That was the debate that was the impetus to get us where we are today. That was like the first domino that fell. And, of course, it was after that debate that the Democrats began their own mini civil war in their own party. We had, with people backing and supporting Joe Biden, continuing to spew the same lies they'd been spewing, that he was vivacious, he had vitality, that he could do it. It was just one bad debate. That's even what Barack Obama said, by the way, just one bad debate. I know about those. But then you had other people who refused, who just turned immediately and wanted to oust him. And of course, that's what we found out happened. But let's just go through this. So we had that debate on June 27th, I think it was. And then January 13th, a couple weeks later, we had an assassination attempt, a Trump assassination attempt that, thank God, failed. And that was an act of God, I have to believe. If you watch those videos that have been circulating that professionals have put together, showing the shots, where they came from, the head activity and movement that had to have been made just when he did it at that time, that exact way, that exact turn. Otherwise, he would have had a bullet in the face, not grazing his ear. And I am so disgusted with our media that acts like that never happened, that pretends as if an assassination attempt against Trump didn't happen. And I heard Jerry Nadler, Fat Nadler, the Penguin. I heard him, the guy who also can't control his bowels, right? Before there was Joe, there was Jerry. And Jerry also pooped his pants. But Jerry was there in Congress. Christopher Wray, the FBI director, actually decided to show up and testify and be questioned about the events of J13. the greatest attack on our constitutional republic since the Civil War, carried out by a Trump hater, incited to violence by irresponsible Democrat media and party rhetoric. Well, Jerry Nadler was blaming it on Trump, on us. So let me get this straight, Penguin. A registered Republican that had never voted before, whose mother, by the way, apparently voted Democrat every election for the past, 2 decades. But anyway, it doesn't matter. We've been through this. But you have somebody, a Democrat donor, because he donated to Democrats shortly before registering as a Republican. Weird. So he tries to take out Donald Trump, and it's our fault. It's Trump's fault. I mean, do I have this straight? These people are lunatics. And this guy's think about these people that are in Congress right now. By the way, for you out there who are haters, who haven't yet seen the light, who are still suffering from Trump derangement syndrome, or any number of hosts out there that are irresponsible and insane themselves, who are trying to convince you that, Donald Trump and Joe Biden, the Democrats, are the exact same. It's the uniparty. No, there is a uniparty. Trump is not the uniparty. They tried to kill him. He didn't stage it. I'm sorry. If you think that Donald Trump staged an assassination attempt against himself, which actually left 2 people in the audience dead, you need to check yourself in and seek help. But anyway, there's Jerry Nadler blaming Republicans for that. So we had that event, and I want to say something to you. I believe firmly that if that assassination attempt had been successful, right? If that kid had indeed successfully been successful in his mission, I think that Joe Biden would still be the nominee. And I'm sorry, this is uncomfortable. You know me, I do not ever try to be the first to say something. I'm not controversial for the sake of being controversial. I just am obligated to tell you the truth. Drew Allen, the millennial minister of truth. And my gut, just like our gut told us that January 6th was a setup, right? Which was proven to be true. Now, just because the Democrats haven't come out and admitted it, just like the Democrats haven't come out and admitted that they stole the 2020 election, we know that they did because there is enough evidence. So just in the same way that my gut told me, the moment the protest started, the moment that the media in unison declared it an insurrection. Interesting word. All arrived at the same time, the same talking point, insurrection. Remember, the Democrats and their media rely upon their ability, their unique ability to shape your reality, to replace reality with perception, to make perception reality. And that will play into why they've gone with Kamala, why they ditched Joe, because they lost control of the narrative. But I'll get into that in a minute. But in the same way that our spider senses went off about January 6th, knowing something was wrong didn't add up. They were going after Trump, accusing him of an insurrection. Firstly, it was not an insurrection by any definition of the word, by any meaning of it. It was not an insurrection. It was ugly. It's not something you're proud of per se that happened, but it was not an insurrection. And it was blown out of proportion, but they were intent upon what they even impeached Trump over it. So we knew this was a setup. And remember what the Democrat reaction was also after January 6th. Not only because American citizens were allowed entry through open doors. Capitol Police, come on in, protester. Come on in, insurrectionist. The door is open for you. Here, yes, mind the velvet ropes, please. Okay, no problem. Can I take selfies? Of course you can. And then the person's put in jail as an insurrectionist later. But we know that January 6th was an insurrection. But still, that did not stop the Democrats from pursuing the narrative, from trying to make it look legitimate. They're always trying to make things look legitimate, to prevent you from asking questions, make sure the lie travels around the world before the truth can ever catch up. That's what they do. Hands up, don't shoot, Michael Brown, right? tell that lie. People still pretend as if Michael Brown was shot in the back by a cop when it was Michael Brown who reached through a police car and violently punched a police officer in the face and tried to take his gun from him. But nobody believes that. George Floyd, same thing. This is what they do. 2020, the immediate movement to legitimize Joe Biden as the president. The office of the president-elect. They rushed to push it out there. I had never seen that pushed in our faces like that before. While we were still sitting there trying to figure out what happened, while questions had not been answered, they were insisting, and George Bush joined in and everyone. No. Okay, that's what they're doing with Kamala Harris right now, by the way. The Democrat Party is actually changing their convention rules. I have it on my phone. I'll just give you this update. I think it is important and relevant to know. But here's the headline from Breitbart. Report DNC to coronate Harris weeks before convention via rule change. So the Democrat Party is reportedly going to change the rules. And they're going to coronate Vice President Kamala Harris as its nominee in the first week of August. Weeks before the Democratic National Convention. So I don't think that everyone has made up their mind on Kamala Harris. I think there's still factions. But the most powerful faction right now is backing Kamala Harris. And stick around, I'll explain why. But that's apparently what's going on. So Democrat leaders are going to assemble on Wednesday. That's depending on when you're listening to this. Today as I'm speaking, but probably yesterday when you get around to listen to this podcast. But they're going to assemble on Wednesday to change the roll call rules to allow Harris to accept the party's nomination before it reaches the convention floor in Chicago. So, January 6th, we saw the Democrat Party rush to declare it an insurrection, and they impeached Trump over it. He was exonerated when they had the hearing in the Senate. So Trump was found not guilty. Of course he was not guilty. He did not incite an insurrection. One, there was never an insurrection. Two, Trump certainly didn't incite it. He had nothing to do with it. It was absurd. But even after they had the impeachment, they impeached him over it. They didn't get their way. So they tried to rewrite the script. And they put together that phony, horrific, fraudulent, dangerous select committee. And they would not permit any actual skeptics to be on that committee. So they got Adam Kinzinger and Liz Cheney, who are now no longer a part of the Republican Party. They're traitors. Not just a party, to the nation, as these members of the select committee were. And people were put in jail over this lie. People were put in jail over January 6th. Peter Navarro. Yes. We cannot forget the protesters. They were treated so horribly. But I'm talking about also Peter Navarro and Steve Bannon. Steve Bannon, of course, is still in prison. Peter Navarro just got out of prison, and they were put in prison for not complying with a congressional subpoena. Right? They were summoned to go and testify about this Trump insurrection. What? There was no insurrection. So this was ludicrous to begin with, but they put them in jail because they refused to comply. And they are still accusing Trump of inciting an insurrection. Still, all of these lies. Right? So that's the links to which Democrats were willing to go over the insurrection narrative, over J6. Now, J13, July 13th, an assassination attempt against President Trump, former President Trump, current presidential candidate. Now, what's more dangerous? People taking selfies in Congress or an attempted murder of a U.S. presidential candidate and former president? It's obviously J13 is more grave, more serious, a greater threat to this country and our stability than J6 ever was. And yet I do not see the Democrats concerned. I don't see them demanding an investigation. I don't see them arranging a select committee to subpoena Mayorkas, subpoena Joe Biden even, subpoena everybody to get to the bottom of this. The Democrats accuse Donald Trump of inciting an insurrection. Are we to now assume that Joe Biden was behind this assassination? I mean, the way the Democrats behave, that would be exactly what they would be suggesting. And my problem is the lack of clear answers, the behavior and resistance from Mayorkas and others to testify, to give us answers, to explain themselves for this unbelievably catastrophic historic failure by Secret Service. Everything had to have gone this way for this result to happen. The only thing that went wrong, if you are a schemer trying to kill Trump, of course, is that the bullet narrowly missed. And that's a win for us in America. But they saw this person 3 hours before, some of them say. He was flying a drone overhead. The Secret Service weren't employing a drone themselves. The Secret Service mysteriously were ordered, because it was not safe, apparently, to occupy the very sloped roof from which that shooter fired the bullets. 8 shots went off, I think it was. And yet Secret Service was in the building. They'd taken photos of this person. They were told not to look into him. Oh, he has a rangefinder to measure distance. We shouldn't investigate him. We shouldn't interrogate him. We shouldn't pull him to the side. You see what I'm talking about? Was this just reckless incompetence, or was it something more? Were the same people scheming in this coup? I just, what links won't they go to? And so my gut tells me, just like on J6, there's more to this story. And don't think for a second that we got justice, that everything's all kosher now because the Secret Service director, Kim Cheadle, resigned. No. We do not sweep this under the rug. Donald Trump, by the way, according to Democrat treatment, he did not enter the Oval Office in 2021. Joe Biden did. So Donald Trump ultimately was defeated. That didn't stop them from going after Trump. Still going after Trump, leading to this assassination attempt. So we're not done. We're not done. And let me ask you a question. In the same way, I mean, if you knew definitively that the Democrats stole the 2020 election, what would you think? How would you behave? How would that affect you and impact you and your life and what you think about your country? If you knew definitively that the CIA was responsible for the murder of JFK, what would that do for you, to you? If you knew that the Biden administration was behind the assassination attempt on Trump, what would that do to you? So we had the assassination attempt, and then we can kind of fast forward again. And again, let me just say this again. If that assassination attempt had in fact been successful, I think that Joe Biden would be the nominee. They intended to kill Trump. But they didn't succeed. And that was like the nuclear option for them. They didn't know what to do because you know what happened? The Democrats lost the narrative. Democrats lost the narrative on Joe Biden. They could not continue to claim that he was vivacious, that he had vitality, because the truth had beaten the narrative. Truth was stronger than perception. They lost the war to shape the narrative. And the Democrat Party and Democrat voters did not believe. Not a single Democrat voter believed, despite the efforts of the media, that Joe Biden could defeat Trump in 2024, in November. The suspension of disbelief was gone. The suspension of disbelief that existed somehow still in 2020, strong enough to allow them to get away with what they did in 2020, stealing that election. But suspension of disbelief has eroded over the last almost 4 years. Nobody believes in their heart, in their gut, even Democrat voters, that Joe Biden got 81 million votes. There was no evidence of his enormous popularity, but the Democrats told us that. They forced that in our faces. That was what they showed us on the screens. That's what they said with their mouths, which defied our own observations and reality itself. But that's what the media's purpose is. That is the purpose of propaganda. Now, let me get to my first sponsor here before I move on, because we're very lucky to have them, the Wellness Company. So we are living in a time, as you see, where uncertainty seems to lurk around every single corner. Preparedness is no longer an option. It's an absolute necessity. That's where the Wellness Company's medical emergency kit comes into play. Imagine having the peace of mind that you're fully equipped to handle any medical crisis, from something as common as tick bites to the challenges posed by the latest pandemic. The Wellness Company's medical emergency kit contains crucial medications like ivermectin, emergency antibiotics, amoxicillin, antivirals, a Z-Pak, and more. It's the ultimate preparedness solution. And rest assured, this kit is backed by the expertise of the Wellness Company. This team of renowned medical professionals, you've heard of them, including Dr. Peter McCullough, Dr. James Thorpe, Dr. Harvey Reish, Dr. Drew Pinsky, and other truth-seeking doctors you can trust. They've crafted a kit that sets the gold standard for safety and prevention. It's the ultimate preparedness solution. Don't wait for the next crisis to catch you off guard. Visit DailyCloutHealth.com and use promo code DailyClout for an exclusive 10% discount. DailyCloutHealth.com and use promo code DailyClout. Now, excuse me. I'm going to have a sip of coffee because this is the Drew Allen Show, and I feel like having a sip of coffee. And frankly, I need a sip of coffee. Yeah, I couldn't sleep. I just kind of, let's just wind down for a second and be a little bit more casual because I haven't gotten a chance to address anything that's happened. And that's the unfortunate thing sometimes when I don't have time to do multiple shows a week. And that's just the reality. I'm sorry. I wish I could. If you keep watching and sharing, I will do 5 shows a week. But right now, I can only do 1. Currently I'm doing PR for Peter Navarro, as a matter of fact, and that eats a lot of time. And I love it. I'm not complaining, but that's just who I am and my background and so on and so forth. Bongino's the Secret Service guy. I'm the publicist guy. But I couldn't sleep Sunday night. I couldn't sleep really Monday night. And I'm a pretty good sleeper, to be honest. I don't have a lot of difficulty going to sleep, but Sunday night, after Joe Biden made that inexplicable announcement out of nowhere that he was going to drop out of the race, I realized, I was worried that the president was dead. I was. And they gave us no reason to believe otherwise. And these people are so inhumane, so sick, so arrogant, so tyrannical that they would leave the country in such a state for nearly a week. Remember, it was last Wednesday after a campaign stop, I think it was in Las Vegas, that Joe Biden first disappeared. They announced he had COVID. By the way, did he really have COVID? Or was that just the premise under which the conspirators behind the scenes needed to hide him from public while they carried out their plan to replace him? People brought up that signature on his Sunday announcement that he was dropping out, and they say it doesn't even match his signature. Did he actually drop out himself? Did he make that decision? Whether he did or not, it was a coup, and he was forced out. And that should be troubling to everyone because who's in control of America? Who's really running the United States of America? But anyway, I couldn't sleep after that. I was really worried, and I was worried for my family. My wife was frightened for the same reason that you were and I was, and every American should have been, regardless. And look, I despise Joe Biden. He's the worst president in American history. He's rotten. He's corrupt. He's evil. But he was the president of the United States. And what we saw on Sunday was the end of the Democrat Party charade. And, I've written about this stuff extensively. I've really been cranking out these articles, frankly. You can go to my Substack, drewallen.substack.com, and check them out. I encourage you to. I'm talking about much of what I've written in those, of course, today as material. But I was scared, and I didn't know if he was dead or not. And of course, he gave us, proof of life, a 10-second appearance getting out of a car in Dover, Delaware, and boarding Air Force One. But I don't think it was COVID. He had COVID exactly 2 years ago. And he put himself on video and he gave a speech. I think it might have been in front of the Truman balcony. I'm not sure, but it was in the White House. He gave a speech and he put himself on camera and posted on social media saying, hey, yeah, I'm recovering. I'm still doing the job. And so, but we didn't hear any of that from him. And it was very, very bizarre. But think about it. So Wednesday, he's in Vegas and he says he tests positive for COVID, or they put that out there, and then he disappears. On Friday, his campaign released a memo telling us that he was going to run for re-election. That was on Friday. And then on Sunday, he puts out another mysterious announcement saying that he's decided not to run and that he's backing Kamala Harris. I mean, in my head, it's like Kamala Harris kidnapped him. She held him hostage and they stuck a gun to his head and she sat there with Doug, her ballless husband, and, the eunuch. And they said, you're going to sign this letter. You're going to stay here until, next Thursday when you can come out and speak, and you're not going to say anything about what happened. I mean, that's the kind of scenario that plays in your head. Like something out of, Pulp Fiction, a Tarantino film. And I can't believe they did this to the country still, honestly, what they did, leaving us like that. And here's the worst part of it, of course, is our enemies are saying and seeing and observing and thinking the same things we are. We don't have a president. And the reality is we have not had a president for nearly 4 years. We've been without a president, somebody that we didn't elect. Now, forget the stolen election thing for a second. Let's just presume, okay, whatever. Joe Biden was elected. People wanted him to be he hasn't been running anything. So what does it say about America that we live in a place where we now have to acknowledge that the person that was elected is not running anything or responsible for anything, that he can be ousted like this so easily? And no Democrat's ever been treated this way, apart from JFK being assassinated by the CIA, potentially, I suppose. But this is the kind of treatment Republicans get every time, right? They try to get rid of Reagan. They did succeed in convincing Nixon to resign. And now they've done that to Joe Biden. And it just makes you think, I mean, this is not the country that I thought it was. I mean, it is idealistically, it is the greatest country still, despite these frightful revelations, because the patriotism in our DNA, the Constitution that was set up, while it's a piece of paper that the Democrats have no reverence for, they're shredding it at every turn, it still offers us some protection, some bulwark against tyranny that other countries don't have. But here we are. And so, we have to wonder if January 13th was an effort by the same schemers that carried out this palace coup to oust Joe Biden. Now, why did they oust Joe Biden? One sip of coffee and I will explain it all. Now, look, let me just grab this article that I wrote because it's so good. It's so good. I compared that sighting, that proof of life sighting of Joe Biden to like a Sasquatch. That's how rare it was. And, it was so brief, though, of course, that it didn't really do anything to convince people who think he's dead that he's alive. But anyway, let's see here. Some of this brilliance I will enumerate and explain. So, Joe Biden, like I said, I believe would still be the nominee if the assassination had been successful. If Trump was taken out, Joe Biden would be in the race. Because Trump is the obstacle here for them. And so Joe Biden wasn't replaced with Kamala, by the way, because Kamala actually has a better chance of beating Trump. She does not. You have to remember that Kamala Harris is one of the least likable Democrats in the Democrat Party. Now they're trying to convince you otherwise. But Kamala Harris is loathed by the Democrats. She was the first. I've got a New York Times article here that I will quote, I guess, if I can find it. I think I do have it. Yeah, here it is. So here's the New York Times headline. This is from, remember, she dropped out. She ran for president in 2020. Joe Biden got the nomination, but Kamala Harris was in the running. But she dropped out in early December of 2019. And here's some pull quotes. Ms. Harris is the only 2020 Democrat who has fallen hard out of the top tier of candidates. She has proved to be an uneven campaigner who changes her message and tactics to little effect and has a staff torn into factions. I mean, this is wild because this is who they're running, and she has not changed. She's the same person. So in early November, a few days after Senator Kamala Harris's presidential campaign announced widespread layoffs, the New York Times writes, and an intensified focus on Iowa, her senior aides gathered for a staff meeting at their Baltimore headquarters and pelted the campaign manager, Juan Rodriguez, with questions. What was her strategy, they wanted to know. Some Harris aides sitting at the table for this meeting could barely suppress their fury about what they saw as the undoing of a once promising campaign. Their feelings were reflected days later by Kelly Mellenbacher, the state operations director, right, of this campaign, the Kamala Harris presidential campaign, who wrote a blistering resignation letter that was obtained by the New York Times. Here's what Mellenbacher said when she resigned from working for Kamala Harris. And by the way, Kamala Harris, even at the White House, has like a 90% rate of people quitting. Nobody wants to work for her. Why? That's alarming. Here's the quote from the resignation letter, though. This is my third presidential campaign, and I have never seen an organization treat its staff so poorly. That's Kamala Harris. If you cannot run a campaign, you cannot run the country. That is a truth as well. But it goes on to explain many things. She couldn't fundraise. Nobody would give her money. And there's only one candidate who rocketed to the top tier and then plummeted in early state polls to the low single digits, Ms. Harris. So that's who they've decided to run. That's who decided to run. So they weren't confident that she could win in 2020. Nobody would give her money and support her. But now we're told that she is Barack Obama 2.0, that she is going to also walk on water, that she is the Messiah, and that if you don't vote for her, you're racist. By the way, all of you out there that got bamboozled. Now, this isn't everyone, but let's be honest. Many of you who voted for Barack Obama did so to prove that you weren't a racist, which in fact proves that you are and were a racist. And now we're told that it doesn't matter that you voted for Barack Obama 2 times. You are still a racist. But that's no surprise because it's Barack Obama who said we have racism in our DNA. So I don't know why you would vote for Kamala Harris, because the Democrats have already told you that it doesn't change anything. So voting for Kamala Harris because she's black, because you feel some kind of white guilt brought on by the lies you've been told by Democrats your whole life, well, there's no point in voting. It's futile. You can vote for Barack Obama 100 times and you'll still be a racist because you are white. So that's not really a winning argument, but that's what they're going to try and play here. The first female black woman, whatever. It's always that. That's what they're banking on. And Americans aren't buying this. Black people aren't stupid in this country. And this is what Democrats think. They think that if they just run a black woman, despite the fact that her policies, the same policies that are Joe Biden's policies, except she's even more radical, destroy black communities and destroy black families and are responsible for the consequences that lead to increased black crime and so on and so forth, etc. No fathers in the home and whatever. That's all Democrat policies that have done that. Treating black people like they're inferior in this country. That's what Democrats have done. And that's not true. But anyway, oh, see, she's black. Now we got your vote, right? Unbelievable. But let's just get into a little history here. Here's the announcement in 2019 on CNN that Kamala Harris had decided to drop out of the race. Listen to this.
Told by multiple sources that California Senator Kamala Harris is ending her Democratic presidential bid. This comes on the heels of a very rocky period for the California senator. It was also complicated by a lack of fundraising ability. The reality here is she was hoping for a lot of California money, a lot of California donors, but that was split several ways. Pete Buttigieg, the rise of his campaign also cut into her. But Brianna, at the end of the day here, this was something that from within her own campaign, she found a hard time finding her voice.
She had a hard time. This is 2024 is 2020 for the Democrat Party. Nothing's changed. Joe Biden was an empty vessel. Kamala Harris is an empty vessel. She doesn't actually have opinions. Now, she's dangerous. She's a radical left-wing Marxist, but she's not confident in her. She's not smart. And she will do whatever she's told to do. She doesn't have principles, is my point. No principles whatsoever. Just like Joe Biden didn't have any principles. And so she is very, very dangerous if she's allowed to get in there. Now, let me finish up my thought here about Kamala Harris and why she was chosen to replace Joe Biden. It's not because she can actually beat Donald Trump. It's because the American people might believe that she beat Trump if they steal the election in 2024. So think about this. Again, the suspension of disbelief is what permitted Joe Biden to get away with what he did, and Democrats get away with what they did, and get him into the J6 was a setup, again, remember, by Democrats, by those that wanted Joe Biden to win. J6 didn't help Trump in any way. On J6, we were supposed to actually air out the dirty laundry of what happened in the election. J6 prevented that. It forced the rubber stamping of Joe Biden as president of the United States, and that was the end of it. And so this time they don't have COVID as a mechanism, right? They are in the swing states suing and trying to make sure mail-in ballots can happen and are legal, and they can set up the drop boxes and so on and so forth. But nobody believes that Joe Biden can win. No rational American believes that Joe Biden even got 81 million votes. And think about the danger for Democrats if Joe Biden goes up against Donald Trump in 2024 in November. They've got to show that they get a lot of votes. What if they can't get 81 million votes this time? It exposes them for what they did in 2020. But Kamala Harris is a clean slate. She's never run against Trump before. So she's a clean slate as it relates and pertains to votes cast. How popular is she? We don't know. There's nothing to compare it to. She hasn't run against Trump before. And she's also a blank canvas to reset the propaganda. Propaganda couldn't overcome reality with Joe Biden. Nobody believed it anymore. Everyone knew the truth, and nothing the media said or Democrats said, none of their lies were resonating. But here they are with Kamala Harris, and they're already trying to do the propaganda with her, to paint her as that which she is not. So you heard reality in 2019 in that CNN clip about who she was, about the lack of energy surrounding her. Nobody wanted her. She dropped out. She plummeted to single digits in the polls. Is that somebody popular, but they're going to go with her this time? This time we're to believe that she's worked for the Biden administration. So Kamala Harris wasn't popular and wasn't selected and dropped out of the race very early on when she tried to vie and mount that futile presidential campaign for the 2020 election. She, and bowed out early. And then she's been the vice president for the worst president in American history. And Joe Biden's policies are so unpopular that they believe that he can't win. And they're going to select his VP? And somehow she's popular? Well, here's what they're saying on Morning Joe now.
Now, we're in a multi-racial, multi-generational society. We are not moving back. We're moving forward. And Kamala Harris represents our future. She represents the fact that we are going to be able to continue to address the issues from protecting women's reproductive rights, the freedoms that they have to protect their own body and to make decisions about their body, as well as economic opportunities and the work, wages, and wealth agenda that the Congressional Black Caucus is advancing to move from a consumer-driven economy to one around ownership, where we all have a stake through home ownership, through entrepreneurship.
I hope you realize how frightening that is. So we're going to move from a consumer economy to, a stakes economy. There's different names for it. You heard them there. That's communism. That's Marxism. We're all going to have, it's utopia. These people are dead set on installing Lenin's Russia right here. It's funny. All the talk about how much they hate Russia. All the talk about how they Russia's the enemy. We hate Putin. They are actually trying to implement the very policies that are responsible for Russia's decline. The USSR, communism that broke Russia, broke the USSR apart. These people are trying to install that here right now, and they're darn near close, and I hope you realize how frightening a prospect that is. It's very hard to get this country back, to get its footing if they succeed, and that's why they cannot be allowed to win in 2024 in November. But there they are. They're trying to paint Kamala Harris as this savior. Now, Donald Trump and her are apparently going to debate, and I can't wait for it. I think it's actually a good decision because nobody should fear her. Here's the thing. Kamala Harris is Joe Biden. She is as stupid as Joe Biden, as inarticulate as Joe Biden, as brain dead as Joe Biden, except she doesn't have the excuse of age or dementia. They're already trying to tell us that that Donald Trump now is the old candidate, that he's slowed down, and Kamala Harris is vivacious. She's the youth. Has anyone been paying attention to Kamala Harris for the past nearly 4 years? She's an imbecile. She's one of the dumbest people I've ever heard speak. I mean, all she does is spout, a series of bumper sticker phrases, one strung after another, whether they make sense or not. Truth matters. I mean, whatever. I mean, that New York Times article, it's funny, actually gets into it. They talk about this. They say, think about this. So here's Kamala Harris, the bumper sticker VP, the bumper sticker presidential candidate. Extensive polling led her, Kamala, to believe that there was great value in the word truth. So she titled her 2019 memoir, The Truths We Hold, and made a similar phrase the centerpiece of her early stump speech. Let's speak truth. But she dropped the saying out of a belief that voters wanted something less gauzy. Her assumptions about the issues that would inspire Democrats were also muddled. She began running on a tax cut aimed at lower and middle class income voters, and then turned to a pay raise for teachers. But those proposals did little to animate voters, especially those riveted by the ambitious policies of Pocahontas, Ms. Warren, and Senator Bernie Sanders. She's the slogan and one-liner candidate. Anyway, so look, the media is doing what you just heard on that clip. You're going to hear more of this. She is Barack Obama 2.0, the savior at last, and they're gonna ram that through constantly. And this is my concern about Donald Trump's decision to not hold outdoor rallies, because this is election interference. In my opinion, the Secret Service signaling that they can't protect him, to get him not to do outdoor rallies, is to try and level the playing field, because Kamala Harris can't draw those types of numbers. And if the American people are allowed to see juxtaposed Donald Trump's popularity with Kamala Harris's lack of popularity, well, the media narrative falls apart that Kamala Harris can defeat Trump. This is what they're using instead of COVID to try and force him to cease campaigning. And this is what I don't like about it. It's the same reason Joe Biden ended up ultimately going down, because he stood on a stage with Trump. And once he was side by side with Trump, the media couldn't lie anymore, because you could see it with your own eyes, the difference. You were comparing Biden to Trump, not Biden to Biden. And as we enter this short campaign season, we're not going to be able to compare Trump and Kamala Harris's visible popularity at these rallies, because Donald Trump, who is the master of these outdoor rallies, isn't going to host them anymore. So he and Kamala will be rallying the same way. Now, Kamala wouldn't be holding these outdoor rallies because it would be embarrassing for her. But now it'll look like Trump and her more or less have the same popularity. They can more easily manipulate the picture and the narrative. You understand? So this is why I don't like what's going on with this refusal to hold these outdoor rallies, because it's a war for perception right now. And they're trying to make you think that there is all this Gen Z support, that she's raising all this money, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, that she has this, that she is the one person that could be the game changer in this 2024 election, that the policies didn't matter, that the state of the world doesn't matter, that she's so popular because she's a black woman named Kamala Harris that they threw to the curb 4 years ago. Well, now she can win. It's inevitable, her victory. So that when they do use those illegals, and if they succeed in pulling off another steal, you're going to accept it because of the suspension of disbelief. Because the certainty that Joe Biden could not beat Trump is now being replaced with Democrat propaganda that says Kamala Harris can definitely beat Trump. It doesn't matter if it's not true. We have the suspension of disbelief. They're sowing again. So they didn't replace Biden with Kamala because she could beat Trump, but because they might succeed in making Americans falsely believe so and accept the outcome in November. So Kamala Harris just might secure the steal in 2024. That's my opinion about what's going on. Now I want to get to my second sponsor here, our second sponsor here at DailyClout, Native Path. Native Path's collagen formula. My wife sincerely swears by collagen. Native Path's collagen formula is scientifically backed to increase bone mineral density, accelerate tissue recovery, reduce wrinkles, enhance hair thickness, and strengthen weak or damaged nails. Who wouldn't want more collagen with all these benefits? And here's the best part. Right now, when you visit getnativepath.com/DailyClout, you can stock up on Native Path collagen for up to an incredible 45% off today, plus free shipping. Every order comes with a 365-day money-back guarantee, so you can try it risk-free today. Reclaim your life, rejuvenate your spirit, and glow with vitality. Joe Biden clearly did not take collagen. All right. So, let me play this other clip too. I want you to hear, because this is going to make you sick. I am just here to prepare you. That is one of my roles, to prepare you for what's ahead, to signal what's ahead. And you're going to experience 2008 all over again. Now, she is not Barack Obama. Not even close. But they're going to run the same strategy. The Democrats are not creative, okay? They're not coming up with brilliant strategies. They're just recycling the old, and they're even stealing from us using our talking points against Trump now because they have someone younger. So now they're just regurgitating what we said about Biden, which happened to be true, and they're repurposing it and using it against Trump. Brilliant. Geniuses, these Democrats. But here's Cory Booker, the senator, back in 2019. This is what he had to say about Kamala Harris after she dropped out. This is what you're hearing today.
Right. All right, Senator, so I'm going to get back. Let's get back to what we just saw in a minute. But I want to ask you, obviously, about the big news from the campaign trail yesterday about Kamala Harris, your colleague, getting out of the race. What are your thoughts?
Well, it's problematic to me. And frankly, it just wasn't a good day. When I'm hearing from my own family members, black women in my family, that, wait, I don't understand this, that you see people in this race who legitimately do not have the kind of pathway that she still had to compete in Iowa, that she's exiting the race, and we're going to see potentially a debate stage with, right now, only 6 people qualified. All of them are white. When we won our last election, the last big presidential record turnout, massive Obama coalition, came because the fullness of the Democratic Party came out, including almost 1 million more African-American votes in 2012 than in 2016.
These people are so sick in the head. Absolute mental illness you're seeing displayed there. That was in 2019. And they can't understand it. You know, they think all they have to do is run somebody black, and that's what Americans care about. These people are such racists through and through. Racism is in their DNA, not ours. We have patriotism, but they are racist, absolute through and through. But that's what you're hearing now, and that's what, if you don't vote for Kamala Harris, you're a racist. But we have the least qualified people on that side of the aisle and in positions. Right. And by the way, the proponents, the great defenders of democracy, just threw out 14 million votes nearly of primary voters, Democrat primary voters, who selected Joe Biden. And Joe Biden, on Thursday, maybe you're listening to this on Thursday. It hasn't happened yet, so I can't address it, but maybe I'll come back and do something to do so. But he's going to come out and give an address. And I've seen them putting up all this fencing outside the White House, and it makes you wonder what the heck is going on. All this extra security. I mean, again, perception. Who knows? I mean, it's terrifying. It's terrifying what they've done to this country. And I don't want to be in the predictive business. I can't keep up with. I mean, there's no one can predict it. And I got to say, it's fine to give an opinion and speculate. It's interesting. It's important. It's natural to do so. But these people that are coming out, by the way, I don't know. People that I used to respect and trust, I can't respect and trust them anymore. To me, your credibility is eroded when you come out so forcefully and are wrong about big things, not things that could change. Like, for example, I've said since the very beginning that Plan A was to run Joe Biden. to get him just across the finish line. And so I don't feel like I don't have credibility because of what just happened. There are a lot of factors that just played into this. And I always said, even in my book, America's Last Stand, I said, it'll be Joe Biden versus Trump or some Democrat they replace him with at the last minute. So I've always allowed that to be a possibility. But based on what was happening, Biden was going to be the nominee. And then we had a failed assassination attempt, and that changed everything, in my opinion. And so now you have this last-minute replacement. And the media has zero curiosity about it. But anyway, Joe Biden's going to give a speech, and I'm curious to find out whether or not he's going to resign from the presidency. Because here's what's so disgusting, too, about what the Democrats have done to us. Let's ask this question that you've probably heard. How can a man who is not fit to run for president be fit to be president? Right? This is the conundrum. And of course, the answer is obvious. He cannot. If you can't run, you can't carry out your duties and responsibilities. And you have this lying propagandist doctor in the White House, Dr. O'Connor, Kevin O'Connor, I believe is his name, who's out there. Oh, yes, he's on his 10th day. He's perfectly healthy. I mean, these people are so evil in their ability and easiness with which they lie to the American people. Jen Psaki, for example. And then we move on to Karine Jean-Pierre. Karine Jean-Pierre went on some news station the other day, but didn't give a press conference. I mean, there is no accountability. This is what I'm saying. We are living under effectively a monarchy right now. A monarchy in which the king isn't really powerful either. The king himself is simply a figurehead, and it's the people in the court that are really running the country. And that is not what America is. We are not a constitutional republic right now, and that is what is so frightening. But, we'll find out if Joe Biden's going to stay in there for the next 3 months. Maybe he'll say, because Joe Biden's only met, we found out, with Kamala Harris over the entire course. He's met with her 6 times. 6 times he's met with her. He's vice president. The person who inherits the job if something happens to him. 6 times he's met with her. So what is he now? He's going to say, I am going to teach Kamala Harris everything I know. We're going to have lunch every single day. Not breakfast because I'm not up, and not dinner because I'm asleep before dinner. But lunch is a good time, and the drugs are working, and I am as animated as I can be. And I am going to tutor Kamala Harris. I'm going to prepare her to become president of the United States because I've been such an effective president and leader. Don't worry, Americans. I understand your concerns that Kamala Harris is an idiot, an imbecile, and she gives you no confidence that she can run the country, especially when she is radical and a lunatic. But don't worry. I'm going to sit down in the beer garden. I don't drink beer, but I'm going to sit in the beer garden with Kamala Harris. She can light up a joint, listen to Tupac. We'll talk about all the blacks she incarcerated during her time as a lawyer in San Francisco. And I will make sure that she's prepared to, inherit the throne, if you will. Here's another reason I'm very concerned about the J-13 assassination attempt. We have reports that a geolocation investigation showed that a phone associated with Thomas Crooks, that's the 20-year-old, now dead, boy who tried to kill Trump. Well, he visited Butler, Pennsylvania, twice, just 2 days before the shooting. So he was scouting it. Now, a cell phone associated with the home and work addresses of would-be assassin Thomas Matthew Crooks visited the Gallery Place building in Washington, D.C. that houses a mall and offices of the FBI. The Heritage Oversight Project reported July 22nd. I don't know. I mean, isn't that curious? Don't we want to get to the bottom of this? Did he meet with the FBI? Did he meet with someone? What was he doing in Washington, D.C. exactly? Are we going to subpoena people and get to the bottom of this? Somebody tried to kill a former president of the United States, and we've already moved on. And the Democrats and the media, by the way, have not skipped a beat. They are still engaged. Actually, their rhetoric has gotten worse. Rather than dial back, rather than express any kind of remorse, rather than even pretend to feign sympathy or kindness. They are doubling down on how imperative it is that they beat Trump. It's scary. It's really, really scary. So I'll share this with you because it's all we know so far. So it's been reported by the New York Post and elsewhere that top Democrats threatened to forcibly remove Biden from office unless he dropped out. That they set him up to fail at the Trump debate, according to sources. Now, I don't think that they necessarily set him up to fail at the Trump debate. They set him up to succeed. I mean, they changed the rules to ostensibly favor Biden. But he didn't have a choice. This is what I'm saying. I mean, they didn't have a choice because they were losing the battle for perception. Everyone believed that Joe Biden was mentally incapacitated effectively. And so what were they going to do? Let that stay? No, they had to do what they could. They didn't have a choice. They could either, I mean, it was a lose-lose for them, actually. But when you're desperate, you do stuff like this and you put them on stage and it backfires. And the Democrats put them in this position in 2020 when they nominated Joe Biden and then hid him in the basement. So they set themselves up for the situation we're in. They did this to America from the beginning because he is experiencing incredible mental decline even back then. Now, one of the operatives at the very highest levels of the Democratic Party threatened President Biden with forcibly removing him from office unless he stepped down. Now, get this. Biden insisted this. I mean, this adds up with what I've been reporting. As calls for Biden to bow out mounted, Biden insisted he would continue, but party bigwigs threatened to invoke the 25th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. Wow. Now, the 25th Amendment, think about this. The Democrats had more courage than Republicans. Republicans would never really push the envelope on the 25th Amendment, even though our country was being destroyed by Joe Biden's policies. And we could see that he wasn't mentally there. They didn't have the guts to employ or even push the 25th Amendment. But the Democrats were willing to use it against. Do you understand what we're dealing with here? We're dealing with a vicious, ruthless opponent. The Democrats are vicious, ruthless, unrestrained, and their only objective is victory. We have to be as ruthless as they are. We have to be as devoted to victory and defeating them as they are to destroying us. That is reality. We are engaged in a civil war in America right now. But the reality of it is, if Democrats could just open up their eyes for a moment and realize that the real battle is between the American people and the U.S. government. And all of this talk, all of this threat to democracy, all of this identity politics is intended to control you. The government is a necessary evil, not a necessary good. And people have been told so many lies about their government. The bigger government is, the less freedom you have. And we are experiencing a moment in American history in which the entire American experiment is in jeopardy of losing it. And that's the real war that's going on. And Trump is our way at this moment in American history to send a clear message to the Democrat Party and the deep state. And that's why they want him dead. That's why they want him dead. People out there that are trying to tell me that Donald Trump is a deep state plant. What are you talking about? They've been prosecuting him. They've been trying to put him in prison. They tried to kill him and failed. And miraculously, he still lives. And we are very fortunate to have him. That's not to say he's perfect. Nobody has to believe that or say that. Nobody is perfect. But he's one of the greatest presidents in American history. That is true. And you know what? The greatest presidents also had shortcomings. Abraham Lincoln, George Washington, so on and so forth. I could go down the list. But this is the moment in American history that he is answering the call. And he is akin to George Washington. He is akin to Abraham Lincoln. He is that big of a pillar. And we are damn lucky to have him to try and put this Temple of Liberty on his own back for us. And so I will not tolerate people out there that are taking pot shots at Trump all the time, that do not understand the stakes of what we're up against right now, that do not understand history and their place in it, of what is needed at this moment in time. People that waste their energy trying to pretend like these are the same people. No, if we do not reelect Trump, it's game over. America will exist nominally. And I hate to even go to a place of explaining what our means of getting out of the tyrannical situation will be in if we lose in November are. And by the way, we need to get rid of this hesitancy to talk about reality. This country was founded on what? A revolution. All right. What does the Declaration of Independence say? That it's our rights when a government becomes abusive to throw it off and replace it with another. I don't want to get there. I mean, we do need to throw off the government and replace it with another, but we can do it with Donald Trump starting there and then speaking to the American people. But do not underestimate Kamala Harris. That's not my point. That's not my point. But don't become reactive again to the media's narrative. Don't go on the defense again, because for a long time, didn't it feel good to be on the offense, to be pummeling the Democrats, to have them tucking their tail between their legs? Didn't that feel good? Well, keep going in that direction. Don't get defensive. Don't buy this narrative and start apologizing for Trump and saying, oh my gosh, he can't win now. There are plenty of stupid people out there making that claim. Oh, woe is me. It's all over. Kamala Harris. No, Kamala Harris is an imbecile. She's Joe Biden without the excuse of age and dementia for being brain dead. All right. So let's get ourselves together, shall we? Let's unite and let's ridicule them to no end. Let's use their tactics against them, the Saul Alinsky tactics, ridicule. Let's make fun mercilessly of Kamala Harris. Let's play those videos of her fumbling over her own words. Let's show the American people that she is no different than Joe Biden. And let's beat them in November. All right. This is Drew Allen, your Millennial Minister of Truth. God bless you all. And until next time.